Hi, I'm Dave Weimer, or more commonly called Daisy. I do a fair bit of danger tree mitigation work in BC parks by falling trees or climbing, limbing and topping them, sometimes rigging with lines and blocks and on occasion using explosives. We'll go through a set of slides and I'll explain some of what we do. Trees that get designated danger trees in parks when they pose a hazard to park users because of damage from weather events such as windstorms and heavy rain or from decay brought on by disease and old age. In the assessment process, the risk of the tree failing is correlated with exposure time, which is the amount of time that the park users are likely to be in the hazard area. For instance, this tree is dead and rotting, but not what is referred to as an imminent risk of failure. So if it was along a trail where people may walk by a few times a day, it may be assessed as safe because it is unlikely someone will be right there when it falls. The same tree beside a tent site or picnic table would be deemed unsafe and be removed, as the risk of to a park user being struck by it are much higher. This is what happened a few weeks ago on a trail near where I live. The trail probably averages 10 hikers on a decent weather day and less than 1 or 2 on a wet, windy day, which is the sort of day this is most likely to occur. A hazard tree like this, anywhere that people might be exposed to it, even briefly, would be assessed as being an imminent risk of failure, unsafe, and require removal. This brings up another aspect of danger tree management. Trees that are too dangerous to fall by conventional means. How do we manage them safely? As danger tree specialists, we have a few tricks in our bag. The problem might be steep terrain and nowhere to stand while cutting the tree. One trick is to saw a plank out of a small tree, cut some notches into the tree you want to fall that you can jam your new planks into, and presto, the faller has somewhere to stand while he places the cuts in the tree. In another situation, we might have a very rotten tree, such as this one, that is leaning hard over a very busy trail and into an access area where it would cause damage to other high-value park features. In this case, it might take some very strategically placed cuts to get the tree to fall in between everything. This is the stump from the tree in the last slide. You can see how little solid wood there was to work with, given the height and diameter of the large and heavily leaning tree. You can see the path of destruction where it went down the hill, but fortunately it didn't land in the river or hit the walking bridge below. Here is a huge dead tree in a park with a highway running through it. Dead trees like this are a mainstay of the ecosystem of a park. As this tree slowly decays and collapses over the next 50 to 100 years, it will provide food and shelter for countless insects, birds, reptiles, and mammals. This is the same tree but showing the diameter of it. This sort of tree creates a catch-22 for the park operators, as they need to keep the park safe for traffic and park users while still maintaining the environmental integrity of the park. A solution is to shorten the tree up so that large stem remains for the ecosystem, but the tree won't reach the road if it falls. This is where we can turn to explosives. The old dead trees standing in amongst the other big trees would not be safe to climb and cut the top off with a chainsaw, so we climb and cut a hole in it and put explosives in it. We can then stand back a safe distance where we will detonate it remotely and blast the top off. So now all the objectives have been met. The birds and beasts that are such an important part of the ecosystem have a home for many years to come. The tourists and traffic will be safe to cruise the park, and the job was done safely with no one put at risk. A win-win-win all the way around. Every now and then this sort of work pays off in spades. This is the view from a helicopter on the way up the Stein River Valley near Lytton. It is a spectacular trail system running over mountains and down the valley. It's a huge privilege to get a helicopter ride into the valley with a view that you'd never get from the ground. Some tree removal jobs can be more challenging than others. In this, the tree was supposed to come off the bridge without damaging the bridge any further and without hurting anyone. It looks like it could be an exciting project. Bring on the explosives. Due diligence in keeping a park safe for park users can be a challenge for the park operators. Those of us that spend large parts of our lives in the forest are better at recognizing the hazard there than those less familiar with it. You can't always count on common sense prevailing among park users. In this case, the trick was to break the tree off far enough from the edge of the bridge so that the falling piece of the tree wouldn't hit any bridge cables on the way down, as it would be a lot of weight moving fast when it let go. A case of sliding your way up the tree and a bit of balancing. As you can see from this, it was a pretty good drop to the river, and if you look closely, you can see some cables reaching out sideways from the bridge. They are cables intended to keep the bridge from swinging sideways in high winds, but in this case, if the falling piece of tree hit one of those, it would probably pull the bridge down. Here's the bridge, back and straightened out the way it's supposed to be. It's easier here to see the anti-sway cable system that reaches out to the side of the bridge. This sort of work does take us to some spectacular places. Here are a few more slides of the scenes that decorate what we like to call our office. One of the many denizens of the parks, a lone bald eagle on a stormy afternoon hanging out on his perch and scoping out the area for a potential meal. We're lucky in that besides for great vistas, we get to see lots of wildlife in our travels. One of the many, this was in Haida Gwaii, a dugout canoe blank that someone made in the late 1800s or early 1900s, but for some reason abandoned. There were a number of them in the same condition around the same spot. A lot of work for someone. We can only speculate as to what happened to cause them to be left there. The Balance Rock, also on Haida Gwaii. The theory is that it was deposited on the beach there 20,000 years ago in the last ice age. It has survived the crashing and banging and erosion of many years of wind and waves. Besides for working in parks, I still do a lot of logger safety work and training for the BC forest industry. I'm lucky in that my work has taken me to many spectacular places. Thank you for watching and listening.